I'm going to do this in a one-take type of thing because I'm really busy. I got shit going on, and I'm not including this in the bad manners title. But one take just going to be a little messy. I'm just going to be talking off the top of my head, off the cuff, so bear with me here on this trip. But Nick Cannon got fired from his podcast, Wildin' Out. And if you don't know, for the one of you who doesn't know, because, if you're searching for this on YouTube, chances are you already know the story. But Nick Cannon got fired from Wildin' Out, his podcast, where he proceeded to have some really anti-Semitic and anti-white rhetoric that he talked about. And normally I don't like to comment on things where, for the most part, everyone said their piece. The information's out there. Everyone just kind of says something. I tend to want to include my own opinion or my own spin on things because when you take a step back and you look at just kind of the situation after it's all said and done, that's when you get the best look of everything that happened. They say that, the future is always in hindsight, or, the best information is always hindsight, or hindsight's 2020, whichever one you want to put into that. But I wanted to talk about a couple of things here. And Nick Cannon's ideas, I 100% disavow. I disagree with them. They're just abysmal, because here's the thing. Jewish and white people get so much shit day in and day out, and to some extent, whatever. It's no big deal. It's like, okay, you do well for yourselves. Can you not take a few little insults here and there? But you sit there and you say, the hypocrisy knows no bounds. And I want to talk about some dissenting opinions that I heard earlier, but I'll get to that later. But, it really kind of is like, hey, if you can't sit there and say bad things about black or brown people, then why should you be allowed to say it to white people or whatever people? Because that's just hypocrisy. You're not changing any hate in the world. You're just trying to play favorites because one person or one group is considered historically more franchised, as people like to say, disenfranchised, whatever. Like, they're more capable than another group. And make your arguments aside in the comments down below. I don't care. I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here just to talk about some specific things about this situation. But I kind of wanted to bring a really different opinion here about, do I think Nick Cannon should be fired? And this is the crazy part. I'm kind of actually astounded in saying it myself that I think Nick Cannon shouldn't be fired from The Masked Singer, but I think it's fine that he's getting fired from his podcast. Now, you can argue whatever you want, but I'm going to make a really strong argument, I feel, here. This is very off the cuff, so it's not well thought out, but I'm trying to make as best of an argument as I can. But when I say freedom of speech, I say all speech. I don't care if your ideas are reprehensible. I just care that you're allowed to say them. When you turn something into action is when it's always the biggest concern. And now, Nick Cannon sitting there and exposing his racist ideas is fine in private, but it doesn't mean that anyone listening or platforming his show has to allow that or listen to that. So if you say, for example, what is your job? Let's say you're a cook. And you go home and you say racist, terrible things about people. Should you be fired from your job as a cook? That's kind of the core to my point here, is that I think if Nick Cannon's job is to be a performer, entertainer, his ideas are stupid or terrible, whatever. But his job at the end of the day is to be a performer. Now, if his job is to go on a podcast and talk and discuss ideas with people, and that network hears them espousing really racist ideas, they don't have to, nor should they really need to host that. But him being an entertainer or performer, he's got bad ideas. We all have bad ideas. Does that mean he needs to lose his job as the Masked Singer? I've got a really strong feeling it's going to happen. But I don't think it should. I think him losing the podcast is kind of the biggest thing where I'm like, I have some struggles even saying that he should lose that. But I think it's fine that the network would want to distance themselves and say, no. Where I did want to go in after this, because that's really the synopsis of my whole video, is just to say that, wow, what a fucking idiot. But I'm kind of thinking that if he gets canceled off of the Masked Singer, I feel like maybe there's a bit of a double narrative going on and saying that, oh, we want to cancel somebody entirely. We don't want to actually get a a fix to bad thoughts or ideas. We just want the person to suffer because they have bad thoughts or ideas. And the way you would really do that is to sit there and say, well, he should be allowed to host The Masked Singer, but maybe like make a statement. Just say, hey man, I'm here to entertain, we're here to perform, trying to prop people up, but in all honesty, let's be honest, I really don't see them staying with him. I can't foresee that future, but I feel like it's going to be unfortunate. I heard one dissenting opinion, and this one infuriated me. I was listening to somebody on their podcast, and they talked about when Nick Cannon made these statements on his show, he starts off the whole thing before by going, I want to be careful in how I'm saying it so that I don't say anything too wrong or too risky, or I want to phrase it correctly. And the person that I heard this dissenting opinion from, as they said, is, you know why they said that? It's because they have something even worse in their head, and that's what they really think in their head, but they're just trying to clean it up for the show. And I really hate that. I hate that so much because that's antithetical to everything that I'm trying to do here. What I try to do is I try to take my time and cohesively tell what I'm trying to think. And if you were to sit there and say, because I'm taking the time to narrate the words so that I can best express them, you're ascribing an intention to me. And I don't think that's fair to do to Nick Cannon in this situation. I think that maybe he does have worse thoughts in his head. He kind of said it candidly, but for the most part, I don't know. I'm not Nick Cannon. I'm not in his head, so I can't predict that. And that's something that's detrimental to the cancel culture world as the entire thing, is that people trying to ascribe intent. You can't do that. It's the worst thing that will ever come out of cancel culture. And I think that when you try to pretend that you know what somebody else is thinking or what they really mean or what they really say, you've lost the plot. And Nick Cannon's lost the fucking plot as well. Oh my God. So Nick Cannon responds after losing his show Wild 'N Out. He goes on a tirade to say that he wants an apology from the network. He self-financed his billion-dollar brand, sure, and then he wants full ownership of his show. Dude, I don't have much response to that other than to go, Nick Cannon ain't based in reality, man. My opinion here, you have to be on this weird cancel culture power trip to come on a show and say horrible racist things to your guest, who I don't even know if the guest had anything that they were planning to have that conversation. Get your network to fire you, and then come on and say, oh man, the mob's going to back me up on this one. You're like, no, they're not. What the fuck? Oh my God. This was the most insane response ever. He said, I demand full ownership of my billion-dollar Wild 'N Out brand that I created. Yes, he did create it. They will continue to misuse and destroy it without my leadership. Destroy without my leadership. That is... First off, billion-dollar brand? Sure, let me see those numbers. I doubt that's a billion-dollar brand. I have never heard of your show until then. But then again, I'm not into hip-hop like podcasts and shows, so I don't know. But full ownership. This is the number one thing I always say to people who are podcasting is, don't sell your fucking show. What did you think was going to happen? You sold it to Viacom. They own everything. Did you really think that you couldn't get fired from your own show? And demanding ownership. Fuck, he's going to have to pay a pretty penny to try to get his own show back if he wants ownership. And I tell you, that network is not going to sell that show if it's 2005 as it was created. Holy shit. And then, they will continue to destroy and misuse thing. It's like, I can't imagine how you say some terrible, racist, hateful shit. And you're just like, they're destroying my show. Wow. So, I don't know, man. I think we've hit this point where he said bad things. I will continue to stress that. He said bad things. But when you're on a platform and your platform is trying to spread and communicate information, is it so wrong for you to lose your job? I really say that it comes down to if your job is that of which has to interact with somebody else or has an impact on somebody else. And I talked about this with one of my friends. I asked them, I'm like, if you say hateful, racist shit, let's say like you think blank people are inferior. Well, your job as a data entry person, your job is to click numbers into a computer. Your job is to write down dates and important information to give to your boss. Your job is to count the number of screws in a package. Like, does it really matter how hateful your ideas are? Now, I ask the same question going, you're a manager. Your job is hiring and firing people. Maybe you shouldn't be a racist person. Like, maybe that's like the only time that you should have an impact, to sit there and say, okay, your job is to handle processing food stamp applications for people. Yeah, we don't want you to be espousing racist ideas to somebody. But if your job at the end of the day is to sit there and make people laugh or giggle at your little entertaining show, and you have terrible ideas, yeah, I'm gonna put a fucking crazy foot out there and say I don't care. Like, if I'm watching the show to watch the show, that's what I expect. And I got into a recent argument with some fucking twittiot on Twitter, where basically I was saying is that the video game website Video Game 24/7 put out this tweet saying that AOC doesn't like dealing. She deals with 13-year-old inting trolls all the time as if they're like the alt-right, because she plays League of Legends, I guess. And I'm just sitting there like, you're a video game website. Your job is to talk about video games. If you want to talk about politics in video games, even still. But the point is that as a customer, I come to your website to read about video game related things, not what political figures are doing in their spare time. And I feel like the same type of principle I would like to apply here, in saying that if Nick Cannon has a show where he's trying to convey information to people and the public, and he's talking about his ideas and his racist thoughts, yeah, maybe Viacom doesn't have to host that. But will he get, like, does The Masked Singer really benefit or lose from letting him just make funny jokes on the TV show? I don't think they really should fire him over that. I don't think it matters that much. Now, you can argue with me, and I welcome that argument. I would really love to have somebody put a point out here, because this is one of those things where I even defend it with, like, saying I don't really fully agree with everything I'm saying, but I defend it because I feel like principled is kind of the approach I'm trying to take, by saying that maybe firing people for bad ideas isn't helping anything. Firing people for bad ideas just makes them think more bad, hateful shit. So why not just sit there and say, hey, we'll let you keep hosting The Masked Singer, just that you gotta take a couple of, like, I don't know, reality checks. You have to, like, be off the internet for a couple years, and you have to go talk to people, go meet up with, communities of Jewish people and sit there and try to understand them. Not just some sensitivity class, which is fucking horseshit. I'm talking, like, get it off the fucking internet. Get off this fucking cancel culture Hollywood train of drugs that Nick Cannon's on. Of just, like, I'm in Hollywood, we are the lead, I'm this, like, it's weird. It's fucking needs to be stopped. So that's my opinion. If you can make a better argument or disagree with me, please do it. I'd love to hear some dissenting opinions. And again, this is much more rough around the edges. This is just meant to be like, sometimes I'm going to do this where I'm just going to get shit off the top of my head. And I had to delete a couple of videos. I apologize. Just one of those things where I record something and I let it sit there for a week and I just don't get around to it. And then I tried to record using some visual aids and it just looked like shit. So I was just like, I'm not going to do it. So yeah, leave a comment down below. I love all of you equally, and please don't be idiots. For the love of God, please don't be an idiot. Oh God, why do you have to be an anti-Semite?